Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Nerdy Movie News Roundup, the show where we round up all of the latest news in the world of nerdy movies. Yeah, we got some interesting topics to talk about today, so let's just jump right into it, as Philip DeFranco would say. You know what? I feel like I feel like the phrase "let's just jump right into it" is something that has been around long enough. Okay, before Philip DeFranco, it's something that kind of just comes out naturally. And you know what? I don't think I need to credit him if I want to say that phrase, quite frankly. So I'm not going to. Okay, we're just jumping right into it. That's my official stance on the matter. Okay. So first up, there was a trailer for season 3 of The Boys. There was another trailer. I actually didn't watch it. I'm kind of at the point where I if there's something where I've already seen a trailer for it and I'm going to watch it, like The Boys is one of my favorite TV shows on right now, I'm going to watch season 3. And if I don't need to watch a trailer for it, then I'm just not going to. So, this trailer came out. I didn't watch it, but it is news. It is a big thing, so I figured I'd include it. So, go check it out if you so wish. But I cannot speak to it. Now, a trailer I did watch was for She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. So, yeah, this is one of those projects that Marvel announced a while back, and we're finally seeing the fruits of it. It's coming out sometime. I think, you know what, I should probably look up the release date, but yeah, I think the show looks really fun. It is let me see, release date August 17th. Okay. I think it looks like a lot of fun. So it seems like the basic conceit of this is that She-Hulk, she is an attorney, and for some reason she gets Hulk powers. And apparently she's related to Bruce Banner in some way. And it's basically about her getting her powers and having to deal with that, and then living her regular life as an attorney, and shenanigans ensue because of that. And it just looks like a fun rom-com with or not even necessarily rom-com. Well, kind of rom-com, because there's at the end of the trailer, it's like showing her going through Tinder and going on dates and stuff, which looks really funny. But it feels more like a sitcom. I don't know, like kind of like, I've never seen Two Broke Girls, but it feels like what Two Broke Girls would feel like. And it's all wrapped inside of a Marvel wrapper, which I think is fun. And yeah. I think my biggest criticism of it is the CGI. I mean, it doesn't look good. That being said, I mean, it's kind of just what I've come to expect from these Marvel series. Like, they just don't have the budgets big enough to make all the CGI look good. And She-Hulk is a character that is fully CGI. So, I mean, it's just kind of a reality that it's not going to look good on television. And I also think it's further the problem is like further exemplified because while she is like a big green Hulk monster, she still looks like relatively human. Like when Bruce Banner transforms into the Hulk, he's like a completely different thing. He's like this big monster. You know, Abomination is in the trailer. It's like Tim Roth turns into this like sea creature monster. She-Hulk still kind of looks like a lot like Tatiana Maslany, the actress, and she still looks like a person. Like when you look at this, you don't necessarily like if you just looked at this picture right here, you wouldn't necessarily be able to tell that this is supposed to be like a giant Hulk creature. So, you know, it is what it is. I'm personally okay with it. Like, once I see that, okay, this is what it's going to look like, I'm kind of able to just take it for what it is and just enjoy the show. But I also do think it's perfectly fair for somebody to just fall into the depths of the uncanny valley while watching this. However, I do have beef with the show. Now, We're gonna go to we're gonna go to the website of the Direct. Okay, Sean Rucroft is apparently a guy who did VFX work on this show, and he revealed something. I was at a company that did VFX for this. Apparently, she was bigger early on, but the notes kept saying to make her smaller. We always roll our eyes like we did on Sonic, but at the end of the day, artists gotta follow orders. You know, I have my kinks. I do. My dream in life is to get choked out by a muscular woman. And I think that's a good thing to aspire to. And I don't appreciate it, Kevin Feige, for you censoring your VFX artists. Okay? The term censorship, it's overused, okay? We've wasted it on politics and people getting their Twitter accounts banned because of, cancelable tweets. This is true censorship right here, okay? The world needs more muscular women. And they're being taken away from us. You've wasted all your time on all that other nonsense when this right here is the issue that we should have been focusing on. But I will tell you what, the battle is not necessarily lost. Okay? We got Warner Brothers to release the Snyder Cut. We got Paramount to change the design of Sonic. We got Marvel to cast John Krasinski as Reed Richards. We can get them to make She-Hulk more muscular. So men, will you stand with me in getting them to torture their VFX artists and make them crunch to make She-Hulk more muscular? Will you stand with me? We must tweet at Marvel Studios. We must buy billboards to get them to change the design for She-Hulk. We can do it. We can. What did the Snyder good people do? We can make like an airplane spell, make hashtag make She-Hulk buff in the sky or something. We can do it, men and women. Women also need more buff women. Women are also in need of this. We can do it. But no. I don't know. I wasn't watching this trailer and being like, oh, she should be more buff. But now that people bring it up, yeah. If she can be more buff, why not make her more buff? Like, why not just make her absolutely jacked? I think that was a missed opportunity, and quite frankly, I think it is just one of the great sins, one of the great tragedies that the poor VFX artists were censored by the studios, by the bigwigs, the fat cats at the top, who are too scared or cowards, too cowardly to allow She-Hulk to be her true self. But no, what do you think about this She-Hulk trailer? Let me know in the comments or whatever down below. Okay, next up. Okay, I just want to note that next we're going to talk about, or actually, okay, here's what we're, okay, wait. I'm trying to think about how I want to do this. Okay, we're going to talk about Stranger Things Season 4. They just put out the first 8 minutes of Season 4, and we're going to talk about it. Now, if you haven't seen it and you don't want to see it and you kind of just want to wait for the show, just wait for this image to leave. Or actually, okay, a better way to go about it would be, okay, I'm back here. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the 8 minutes because I watched it. And then when I come back, when I come back to that image that you just saw, then the season or then spoilers will end. Although, in my defense, I will say that I think and for me personally, I was fine watching the first 8 minutes because I'm like that is what I'm going to be experiencing when I watch the show. It's not like a trailer where it's like just random stuff out of context, and that kind of allows me to kind of guesstimate and predict what is going to eventually unfold. This is the first 8 minutes. That's just consuming the product, so I'm fine with it. But I figured some people might be avoiding it, so I am going out of my way to accommodate you. Okay, so the first 8 minutes were pretty good. It actually did a lot for that. Like, I don't remember what that character's name was, but the scientist, that 11, I think she would call him Papa or something. It actually like kind of recontextualizes the series in a kind of big way because you know that scientist guy, he was always very cold towards 11. It felt like, at least this is from what I remember. It's actually been a really long time since I've watched the show, but he was always very cold towards 11, and we kind of saw him as a guy who just tortured kids. And it's very interesting to see that in this first 8 minutes, he actually was pretty good with the kids. Like, maybe it was just manipulation. I mean, that's possible, but he seemed to have good relationships with them. And they've revealed that 11 actually, and this was like a tiny 11, so this would have been like before this would have been like before the first season, right? The first episode. There's like a little tinier 11 that was kind of the CGI looked pretty good. I mean, they didn't like, it was a de-aging effect, and it looked okay. Like, it wasn't, it was a little weird, but I was fine with it. And she, for some reason, slaughtered a bunch of other children, and that was disturbing. Like, seeing children like that was really disturbing. But yeah, and it kind of just recontextualizes everything of like, maybe that's why he is kind of as cold and callous as he is because he like understands how dangerous these children are, and like he understands that he needs to be like ultra careful with them. Of course, there's also the thing of, hey, maybe don't experiment on children. that's also a thing. But yeah, and then I mean, just from a filmmaking point of view, it was really good. It's one of those things where it very much feels like an 80s movie again, just the way it's shot, the way the score is utilized, the title treatments and all that. It's all very 80s, and it's all really cool. So watching these first 8 minutes, it's like, yeah, I'm back in. I've personally really I've been enjoying Stranger Things all throughout, and the wait is long enough that I'm now like eagerly anticipating for more. So I personally cannot wait for the Stranger Things to come back. Okay, so we are back. No more spoilerers for Stranger Things Season 4, the first 8 minutes. Now, we are still going to talk about Stranger Things Season 4 in a non-spoiler fashion because we now have the episode counts. It's coming from Deadline. Or Variety? I don't know which was... Okay, I guess it's Variety. Netflix also revealed that the first 7 episodes of the 9-episode 4th season will drop on May 27th, and the final 2 episodes will be released on July 1st as Volume 2. It was previously announced that the 4th season would air in 2 parts. So, yeah, I guess I was expecting it to be more like maybe the first 5 episodes, and like roughly half of it would come as Volume 1, but apparently not. Apparently most of the episodes are dropping as in the first volume, and then only the last 2 episodes are going to be dropping as the second volume, which is a little weird and a little lopsided, and I don't know exactly how that's going to play, because I feel like by the time we get into the 7th episode, it feels like that sounds like we're going to be kind of like reaching into the climax, and it might be weird for it to have like a break in between then, but I don't know. We'll see. Um, but yeah. And again, this is more of Netflix experimenting with staggered releases. Like I don't know. I wonder why they're doing this exactly. Like, is it because they're seeing that, like, because we've seen with other streaming services that week to week releases, it's just better for the show. It causes more conversation. Um, and I wonder if this is them starting to experiment with that, or if they actually need that time to finish polishing up the last two episodes. Honestly, I'm not sure, but it's definitely interesting indeed, and it's also honestly it's good for me because I like binging, but I also like make content around this kind of stuff, so I'll probably want to do a Stranger Things review, and less episodes that I feel like I have to rush through to get a review out is better for me. So there's also that selfish aspect of me that likes this. But yeah, what do you think about what do you think about that? Do you think it's gonna be weird? Again, I am talking out of my bum because I haven't seen them, so I have no idea this where the show is gonna be at the end of episode 7. So there is that as well. But let me know what you think. Okay, next up, John Watts, the director of the Spider-Man MCU Spider-Man trilogy, as well as the old director of the upcoming MCU Fantastic Four movie, who left. Now we know what he's doing. He is doing a Star Wars show. This is coming from the Hollywood Reporter. The Spider-Man trilogy director has created and will helm a new Star Wars series for Disney Plus. Still mostly under wraps, Watts' series, codenamed Grammar Rodeo, a reference to an episode of The Simpsons in which Bart and his schoolmates steal a car and run away for a week, was described in Vanity Fair as in the tone of a classic Amblin coming-of-age adventure film of the 80s. Watts' show will take place closely after the events of Return of the Jedi, much the same way as The Mandalorian as far as time period. So this is interesting. Now I'm not like a super I'm not like a super huge Star Wars nerd, but I was I think I'm trying to remember, man. There was like a rumor that there was a show like this, that would center around a bunch of kids, and I kind of assumed that they were gonna center around a bunch of like Jedi younglings, and it was maybe gonna take place, in like the prequel era or maybe before then. But with this taking place after Return of the Jedi, there really aren't like the Jedi is council, or like the Jedi organization, whatever it's called, isn't really a thing, right? So I guess this might be just like regular people in Star Wars, like regular children in the Star Wars universe going around on an adventure. But either way, I think this definitely sounds interesting. We saw with the Spider-Man trilogy that John Watts is obviously pretty good at making, movies surrounding children, although, they were more like teenagers and whatnot. But yeah, I mean Goonies in the Star Wars universe, that's basically what the show is going to be, and that could be cool. We'll see. We've seen with like Miss Marvel that the MCU is trying to make a show like pretty aimed at younger audiences, and I wonder if this is going to be the same thing, or if maybe it is going to take like a Stranger Things route where, yeah, it deals with kids, but it's also not necessarily aimed at kids. It'll be interesting to see what comes of this. Okay, next up. Oh, and also the other thing to mention about the show is that this is seemingly why he left Fantastic Four. Who knows? Maybe he could have done this and Fantastic Four at the same time, and he really did just want to get away from the MCU. But yeah, I guess, yeah. Presumably he decided to leave Fantastic Four to do this, and I guess some people might say, well, really, you left a feature film to do a show, but I think it is also important to note that he's like the showrunner of this, and he's in charge of this, and I can understand wanting to, like, even though yes, Fantastic Four is a film over a show, I can understand, instead of being very stuck under Marvel and enacting Kevin Feige's vision, I can kind of understand wanting to jump on a show and have it just be your thing and you being in charge. I like honestly, I could conceivably understand that. But yeah, that's also a pretty interesting aspect of this whole situation. All right, next up, Echo has started production and they released an image. Here's the plot of Echo. That this is coming from Variety. The series will see Maya leave New York for her hometown, where she reconnects with her roots and ends up at the center of a new crisis. Okay, and then here's like the full image of it. She seems to be sitting at a forklift. Um, this show is a weird one. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I I liked the Echo character, I guess, in Hawkeye, but near the end, I think they kind of floundered about too much with her, and she became less interesting as she went on. And I think a lot of that is due to the fact that they actually set up like a pretty decent backstory for her, and they made her sympathetic. But I just feel like they rushed her character near the end, where like I guess I thought that they were setting up that the Echo show was going to be about Echo getting revenge on Kingpin. You know, like for the death of her father. Sorry, I'm dying here. Like that's what I kind of expected that they were setting up. But then at the end of Hawkeye, they have her shoot Kingpin in a incredibly rushed and very narratively unsatisfying manner. So I just don't know how to feel about the show. I mean, I'll watch it obviously, and I did like the character at first, and I like the actress. Like she was fine in the show. So hopefully this is good. But it is one of the Disney Plus shows where I'm like, really, you're making a character about her? That being said, it is heavily rumored that Daredevil will show up, and Daredevil and Kingpin will show up in the show in some capacity. Although, with the fact that this is about her going to her hometown and like reconnecting with her roots, I'm like, I don't know what Daredevil is doing going to like a going to some like rural hometown or something. I don't know. But yeah, we'll see how this goes, and hopefully it's great, and hopefully Echo becomes the best character in the MCU or whatever. All right, next up, let's get into some more Star Wars stuff. So we're gonna read a thing from Vanity Fair where the president of of Lucasfilm has come out and given some thoughts about Star Wars recastings. This is coming from Vanity Fair. We also can't go do something without Luke Skywalker that isn't Mark Hamill. We're not going to suddenly go try to do that. There should be moments along the way when you learn things. That being Solo, may have certainly been a learning moment. Some people have talked about how, well, maybe Solo should have been a TV show. But even doing Solo as a TV show without Harrison Ford as Han Solo, it's the same thing. So, yeah. Basically, in that Vanity Fair article, Kathleen Kennedy, she talked about, about, the state of Lucasfilm and the future of Lucasfilm and all that. And this is one of the interesting things where, because of the failure of Solo, that basically means that we're probably not going to see any more recastings of classic Star Wars characters. And this has led people to believe that we are probably just going to get a bunch more deepfake stuff. Let me actually just talk about this first. I personally think that this is like the wrong lesson to take from this, in the sense that I don't think there's anything wrong with recastings. Now, listen, I'm not going to lie to you. The box office of Solo does speak for itself. It's like I think it made like $300 or something million. I guess let me look that up actually. And so it's one of those things where I can't, I get it, right? It made $393 million. I get it. But I'm personally of the opinion that it's cool that you got Mark Hamill to be Luke Skywalker in The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett, but I hate the deepfake. I think it looks bad. I think it looks creepy. I think he feels like an emotionless automaton, and I don't like it. That being said, I'm part of the problem because I didn't see Solo. I still haven't seen Solo, but apparently, from what I've heard, the guy who plays him is apparently pretty good. But I am part of the problem in the sense that I can complain about the CGI, whatever, all I want, the deepfakes, but I didn't support the movie that actually like did a recasting, which is what I want. So I don't know. I'm like, for the good of the product, I think recasting is better. That being said, I also can't understand, like, I also can't necessarily blame her logic when, you know, everybody clowned on Solo, yet when, the PS4, the PS4 Avatar character, Luke Skywalker, comes out at the end of The Mandalorian, and everybody claps and cheers. Oh my gosh, it's Luke Skywalker. It's how I've always wanted to see him. Oh my gosh, my childhood. Like, that is a reality. That is a thing that happened, and I know my camera just went out, but I don't know. I don't like it. And I will say, though, there is another thing that she said that does kind of maybe reassure me a little bit. So let's actually read okay, so let's read another thing. So this is from that same Vanity Fair article. This is the question that the guy asked. How important is it to get outside the gravity of the Skywalker saga, moving beyond the characters we know? How vital is it to open up those new realms? And this is Kathleen Kennedy's answer. I think it is vital, just staying within the construct of George's storytelling to keep chipping away at that. I think it would be wrong. It's our job to step away now, but still have a connection to the mythology that George created. That won't stop. But we are moving on from the Skywalker saga. That's what's taking a lot of time, discussion, and thought right now. So, that quote actually does give me a little bit of hope. Because that quote actually does indicate to me that, I think people are freaking out about the other quote, but that quote indicates to me that they're not going to go out and make like a Luke Skywalker movie where, a creepy automaton Luke Skywalker is going to just emotionlessly make his way through a narrative. I don't think we're ever going to get that. I do, she says that we're moving on, but we are still going to have connections. I do think we could still see more creepy CGI automaton Luke pop up as a cameo. I do think that is a thing that can happen. And while I'm still not thrilled about that, I still think that you can recast one of these characters, even if he is just going to have cameo roles. I still think you can do that. But I'm okay with the weird, creepy automatons. And just that quote in general, the fact that they're getting away from the Skywalker saga, I think is really great. I just don't think it's worth it messing too much with these classic characters. Like, I personally thought what they did with Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi was cool. I liked what they did with him. That being said, a bunch of Star Wars fans didn't, and they were very vocal about it. And, when you do something like that to a character that they love, they pee in their little pantaloons and they throw fits, and it's not a good situation. So maybe just go out and tell new stories. Just don't even bother messing with classic source material, because people can't maturely engage with it. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't seem to be worth it. So in a lot of ways, that quote does give me a lot of hope that just go do your own stuff and hopefully it'll be cool. I'm really looking forward to like that Acolyte show that's coming on Disney Plus, because I think that's a show that's going to take place even before the prequels. So there's just like they're not even going to be able to to like tie into the other stuff, like other stuff that we know. Like pretty much the only like cameo that we could possibly get in that would be like Yoda, right? Because he was alive well before the prequel era. So, and I mean, even looking forward, if we're looking at stuff that's going to be made after the sequel trilogy, it's like Han, Leia, and Luke are dead. It's like they can't even really show up if they wanted to. So, I actually am in a way like this statement and just the way the Rise of Skywalker leaves off, as much of a bad movie as that is, it does kind of it does kind of reassure me that going forward, they're not really going to be able, even if they wanted to, rely on nostalgia. They're gonna have to make their own stories, and that is promising in its own way. So yeah, let me know what you think about the state of Star Wars in these comments, and like, do you like the deep fakes? Would you rather them just recast Luke Skywalker with Sebastian Stan or something like that? Let me know in the comments down below. All right, next up, it looks like the rights for Stan Lee are going to be licensed to Marvel. This is coming from Screen Rant. The Hollywood Reporter has brought word that Marvel has signed a massive 20-year deal with Genius Brands International and POW Entertainment's joint venture, Stan Lee Universe, to license the likeness of Lee in future films and TV productions, as well as Disney theme parks, merchandising, and more. This new deal does open the door for Stan Lee's MCU cameos to return in the future with the use of CGI and old footage, though inside sources note that decision has yet to be made by the studios involved. Okay, so when this was revealed, or reported, I should say, a lot of people jumped kind of to the conclusion of, oh my gosh, they're going to do CGI Stan Lee cameos. This is awful. This is poopy. We don't want that. And I'm kind of in agreement if that is in fact what's going to happen. I really don't want that. Like, just, I don't know. I'm trying to, the thing about this is that whenever I think about, issues like this of like, CGIing dead actors, it's like, is it disrespectful? Like, I would say it is. Unless we get word that, before Stan Lee died, he was okay with something like this. Like, then maybe it'll be okay. But even beyond that, like, and it's not even necessarily, like, I don't have, like, a logical rationalization for it, but I just find it creepy. I don't like it. Like, if someone passed away, it's fine. Like, they can, like, we don't need more Stan Lee cameos. We can let him rest in peace. If you want to have like posters of Stan Lee, like in the background of a shot, like I think that could be cool. Like if somehow you can work in like old footage of Stan Lee playing on like a TV in the background of a movie, I think that could be fine. But like doing like a CGI deepfake of Stan Lee to like do the old Stan Lee cameo, I don't like it at all. I don't want it. I don't want it. Now, it should be noted that that isn't necessarily what they're doing. They haven't confirmed that is necessarily what they are doing. All that's been reported at this point is that with the sale of these rights, it looks like Marvel will have the option of doing that. And I don't know that they will. Because, listen, this is the same Marvel that refuses to recast Chadwick Boseman, that refuses to recast T'Challa out of respect for Chadwick Boseman. Now, I'm actually of the opinion that I would be totally fine with a recasting of T'Challa. Like, I don't necessarily know why we needed to now get rid of the character of Black Panther, that Chadwick Boseman worked so hard to make as iconic as he is. But Marvel they've decided that out of respect for Chadwick, they no longer, they're just not going to use the T'Challa character anymore. like it's way more disrespectful to like use Stan Lee for these Stan Lee cameos. Like that feels way more disrespectful to me personally. So I don't know. Honestly, it wouldn't shock me if they did try to recreate the CGI cameos, but I hope they don't. All right. Let's move on to the next story. Gotham Knights. You know that TV show that nobody wants? It's got a description now. Let's go to Screen Rant. Batman is dead, and a powder keg has ignited Gotham City without the Dark Knight to protect it. In the wake of Bruce Wayne's murder, his adopted son, Turner Hayes, Oscar Morgan, is framed for killing Cape Crusader along with the children of some of Batman's enemies. Duella, an unpredictable fighter and skilled thief who was born in Arkham Asylum and abandoned by her father. Harper Row, a streetwise and acerbic engineer who can fix anything. And her brother, Cullen Row, a clever transgender teen who is tired of being polite and agreeable. With the charismatic and hard-charging District Attorney Harvey Dent and the GCPD hot on their trail, Turner will rely on allies, including his best friend and formidable coder Stephanie Brown, and unlikely Batman sidekick Carrie Kelly. But our knights will soon learn there is a larger, more nefarious force at work within Gotham City. This team of mismatched fugitives must band together to become its next generation of saviors, known as the Gotham Knights. And this is like an image, the official image that they released of the show. I don't know. Honestly, I think my biggest problem with the show is that it's another Batman show that doesn't have Batman. And I'm just not enthused by these shows. I don't really want to watch a Batman show that doesn't have Batman in it. It's just not really something that I'm interested in at this point. That being said, I mean, I'll check it out. Granted, I still believe that the CW universe is dying. So, although granted, this is a show that was greenlighted after the cancellation of all the other CW shows. So maybe it's not dying so much as being reduced. So I don't know. I'll probably check it out because I did make a vow to watch all of the CW DC shows. So I'm committed. I'm watching the show. But I don't know. And it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, we're going to see a bunch of tweens. And you know what it reminds me? It reminds me of that Hulu show, The Runaways. And that show wasn't good. I watched it. I don't know why I finished watching it, but I did. And it wasn't very good. And this gives me those vibes. Because that was also a show about like the children of villains that kind of discover that their parents were villains, and so they run away from them. Like, that's what this reminds me of. And I'm not enthused. I'm not enthused that this reminds me of that. So, I don't know. Maybe it'll be good. Maybe it'll be terrible. It'll probably be terrible. But we'll see what happens when it comes out. Okay, next up. It seems like DC is now pivoting for all of their movies to have theatrical releases. This is coming from comicbook.com. A new report from The Hollywood Reporter sheds light on that axing and reveals that, and this is talking about the axing of the Wonder Twins movie, and reveals that new Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav is imposing a mandate that DC movies should now be made with a theatrical first goal. A source quoted in the report also claims that a lot of things that were developed are going to go away. So this is both exciting and also kind of worrying. So I do think that at the end of the day, movies should be made to be played in a movie theater. Like not only are just movies, in my opinion, best watched on a movie theater. I've kind of come around. I was kind of the opinion that for a long time that I don't mind watching a movie at home, and I still do appreciate having that option. But I don't know. I've kind of come around on the idea of like, man, I like going to the movies. I like sitting down in a theater. Like not having the option to like look at my phone all the time. Not having the option to like walk away from it. just being trapped in a theater. This isn't being forced to just sit down and get engrossed in a story. I think that's the best way to watch a movie. And I also don't think it really makes a ton of sense for a streamer to spend a bunch of money on a movie. Because okay, you make a movie and it's cool, but a movie isn't going to it might draw new subscribers, but it's not going to keep your subscriber base on your service. Like, like you can spend $100 million on Red Notice, and sure, a bunch of your subscribers will check out Red Notice, but that's just a one-time viewing. But hey, if you make, Moon Knight, guess what? Your subscribers, they're going to get invested in Moon Knight, and then after 4 episodes, they're going to have to subscribe to Disney Plus again to watch the last 2 episodes of Moon Knight. So it's one of those things where it's like, it just week to week releases make a lot more sense, and series in general make a lot more sense, because it's just going to keep your audience invested in your platform and keep them subscribing to your platform. So I don't know. And not to mention, and that's where, streaming series can make you money. I just feel like putting a bunch of money into a movie to drop on HBO Max, you're not going to get that theatrical revenue, and it's not really going to do much for your service at the end of the day. Whereas you drop, Batgirl in the movie theaters, it's going to make a bunch of money in the movie theaters, and then guess what? That's going to build up a bunch of hype. And when the movie drops on HBO Max, people are going to go, oh yeah, there's that Batgirl movie. They're either going to go, I really enjoyed that movie when I watched it in theaters. Let me subscribe to HBO Max to watch it again. Or people are going to go like, oh yeah, that Batgirl movie. People really like that. Let me subscribe to HBO Max to check it out. And so you're able to like double dip in that way. So at the end of the day, I do think I think it's good that they want to make these movies for the theatrical release. Where it's kind of disappointing is that the article mentions that some of the other projects might be going away. So I know that they were working on a Static Shock movie for HBO Max. And does that mean that movie's not going to happen because maybe they don't believe that it'll make enough money in theaters? I think that would suck. I think, like, I'd like to see a Static Shock movie. I know there's one of the writers from Lovecraft Country. She's working on a Black Canary project. Is that, and I think that's meant to be on HBO Max. Is that not going to happen anymore? Maybe. Because if maybe that's a character that they don't think would work on or in theaters, and they're also just not wanting to make that for HBO Max. I don't know. I'm kind of conflicted on this, because at the same time, I do appreciate that streaming can be an avenue to make more niche, interesting projects, But hey, maybe they take Static Shock and turn it into a series. Maybe they take Black Canary and turn that into a series. That could also be interesting. So we'll see where this all goes. But for now, let's move on. Okay, title of the video: Daredevil is coming back. It's been officially announced that it is coming to Disney Plus. Let's go on to comicbook.com to read about it. A new Daredevil series is reportedly in the works for Disney Plus, with writers and producers attached to the project. Variety reports that Matt Corman and Chris Ord are developing the new Daredevil series for Disney Plus. I am mixed on this. Here's the thing. I absolutely adore the Netflix Daredevil show. Not only do I think that it is the best comic book show, I think it's the best thing that Marvel has ever made. They've ever done. I just, listen, I love the MCU, but Daredevil is just simply on another level of excellence. So just the fact that they're making a Daredevil show for Disney Plus they got a lot to live up to, and quite frankly, what they've given us so far doesn't necessarily give me much hope that they're going to be able to live up to it. Now, listen, I don't think they necessarily have to live up to the Netflix show. As long as they give us a fun, entertaining show, I'll be happy. Like, I don't necessarily need it to be as good as a Netflix show. However, I watched Hawkeye, and they completely butchered the character of Kingpin. Like, to an absurd degree. Like, just completely stripped away all of the narrative complexity on that character, the emotional complexity. Just wasn't there. And that really makes me worried about a potential Daredevil show. It does. It does. So, man, I want to hope for the best, but I don't know if I'll be able to cope. Because it's like the thing about it is that, while yes, I was sad that the show was canceled on Netflix, at the same time, I also thought that those 3 seasons worked together really well, and it was a cohesive, 3 seasons of television. It told a great story. I was content with what I had, and I was ready to accept its end. I'm a little worried about this. Now, there is also the other thing about this, is this even necessarily Daredevil season 4? Or is the Netflix show not even canon to the MCU? We have not gotten clear information on that front. Vincent D'Onofrio has been flip-flopping all around, being like, well, it's its own, they take their liberties, and it's not the exact same Kingpin. Actually, no, it is the exact same Kingpin. And, they've just been very unclear about whether or not it is the same thing. So maybe this ends up not even being, maybe this ends up being incredibly distinct from the Netflix show. And maybe it ends up being its own thing. Or maybe it is a direct continuation of it, even if not an official season 4. But, it's kind of a season 4. And it just falls flat on its face. Who knows? Either way, I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm very happy for Charlie Cox and presumably Vincent D'Onofrio. I imagine he's going to come back for this. And yeah, and hopefully they bring back, Karen Page and Foggy and all those characters. And yeah, I want to hope for the best, but I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't a little worried. All right, next story. Thor 4. We now know its runtime. This is coming from Screen Rant. With just over a month remaining until it hits theaters, the Thor Love and Thunder runtime has reportedly been revealed via CBR. According to a listing from Australian theater chain Event Cinema, the latest Chris Hemsworth-led MCU adventure will clock in at 115 minutes or an hour and 55 minutes. Neither Marvel Studios or Disney have confirmed the runtime, and no major American theater chains show a runtime listed for Thor Love and Thunder at the time of writing. So, this is a bit of a rumor, but let's just assume that it's real. I have no opinion on this, and I don't think anybody should have an opinion on this, because we're not going to know if that's an appropriate runtime until we watch the movie. It's kind of weird. Like, people always hear runtime and freak out, having whatever opinion they might have, whether it be that's the perfect runtime, or movies should be 2 hours, or they're going to say that's not enough time. You can never tell a story in that time. And the reality is that an appropriate runtime is going to depend on the movie. It's going to depend on the story that they're telling. And we're not going to have any idea if this is an appropriate runtime until we watch the movie. Like, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness was a perfect example of that. People saw that it was only 2 hours, and they were like, this is a disaster. How are they possibly going to do this movie in that amount of time? It needs to be 3 hours. No, it didn't. It was, if anything, they could have cut down the runtime a little bit, because people were expecting a certain movie from that, and they were like, well, they can't possibly tell the movie that I'm imagining in my mind. And then when we saw the movie, it wasn't that movie. It was actually like a pretty small story. And they did not need any more than the 2 hours that they spent. So maybe we'll watch Thor Love and Thunder and we'll go, they just needed 30 more minutes to tell its story. It was incredibly rushed. Maybe that'll be the case, but until we watch the movie, we don't have any idea. So let me know what you think about that in the comments down below. All right. Last story of the day. Your FNAF Five Nights at Freddy's. You remember there was a movie? There's a Five Nights at Freddy's movie apparently supposedly coming out. It's important to stay hydrated, children. Well, the producer of that movie has come out to reassure fans with this tweet. Listen here, all you FNAF fanatics. Well, specifically the doubters. Stop doubting. Honestly, what does this tell us? Nothing. Nothing really. Except to say that this movie is apparently happening. Supposedly. You know, this honestly more than anything is just some semblance of evidence that this is a thing that is still being worked on, and actively worked on and actively trying to get made, because a producer wouldn't come out and tweet that if this was something that was in development hell and was just never coming out. Him coming out and tweeting that is an indication that, yeah, this movie is being actively worked on and they are seriously looking to release it. And I don't know, even with that being the case, I just don't really care until we get a trailer, because I'm pretty sure they announced this movie like 87 years ago, and we've just seen nothing come from it. We've seen it be canceled and moved to different studios. I don't know. And I think they need to come out with this movie. Let's be real, they needed to come out with this movie like 4 years ago, right? When FNAF was like at its peak. And Five Nights at Freddy's is still big, don't get me wrong, but there was a time, there was an opportunity, and they probably wasted it. That being said, I mean, if the movie's good, then I'm sure it can still make a lot of money, but I just don't. I mean, I understand why it's probably taken this long. If you don't know anything about Five Nights at Freddy's, it's like a horror franchise where, Chuck E. Cheese like animatronics, they try to kill you. And the weird thing about the franchise is that it actually has like this very deep and complex lore to it. And the creator is very much like J.K. Rowling in the sense that he's very hands-on with everything and very specific about everything. And my understanding is that he has the same he has that same approach with this movie. Like, this isn't going to be like one of those things where, the studio comes in and takes an IP and does whatever they want with it to try to make it appeal to general audiences. It's like, apparently this is going to be a canonical movie, and I guess the creator needs it to be perfect, and he needs it to fit within the story of what the games have already established. So I can understand why that would take a long time. But even with that being the case, my apologies. Even with that being the case, just get it done. It's taken way too long. But I just figured I'd bring it up because it is one of those things where they're talking about it, and nobody like this. This isn't even a case where like he was in an interview and the guy was asked a question about it. He made the tweet. He took the initiative to be like, hey, we're working on it and it's going to be good. So that it's something, at least. So if you're a big Five Nights at Freddy's fan, Let me know what you think about all that in the comments down below. Okay. Next up, we're done with the news. Let's get into what I've been watching. I finished Blasphemous. This is a game that I talked about last week. It is a 2D, kind of like pixel 16-bit platformer. Kind of, not really. It's also kind of. I'm actually. Now that I think about it, I'm like, it's not 16-bit, is it? I mean, no. I mean, the animations are like. First of all, I will say it's a beautiful game. Like, I like the art. The art design is absolutely stunning. It is very like grotesque and grim, and there's a lot of like religious imagery that's like very creepy. But it is a beautiful game, and yeah, but it's a 2D side scroller. It's like a Metroidvania type thing, and I thought it was pretty fun. You know, it's not one of those things that like blew my mind or anything in terms of gameplay or level design, but it's perfectly serviceable. It is one of those things though that a lot of the dialogue just kind of completely went over my head because it's very like it's kind of like Shakespeare. Like I don't know, I can't really watch Shakespeare or read Shakespeare because I just don't understand the dialogue. And this is very like just the way that they talk is very. I mean, it's not Shakespearean necessarily, but it's very just like old. I don't even know what time period it's necessarily from, but it feels very like old, and it just kind of glosses over my head the same way that Shakespearean dialogue does. And so I didn't really understand the story, and it is very like obtuse either way. Where it's like my guess, like you have to read a bunch of like lore stuff, and you have to read like the lore that comes with items, I guess, to like come to like piece together the narrative. It's very much like Dark Souls in that way. So I didn't really get into the lore. I was like, I don't really care. So, but it was just a fun time. And yeah, it's not that difficult. Like it actually does take a lot of cues from Dark Souls. It seems where, it does the thing where when you die, you kind of have to go back to where you died to pick up your stuff or whatever. So it does have that influence from it. That being said, I didn't think it was all that hard. There's like one super duper hard boss, and it's like a secret boss that you get when you collect a bunch of collectibles, and it kind of unlocks this boss. And that's the one boss that, I kid you not, I spent literal days trying to beat.